Happy Sunday, everybody. I just put my hair up. This looks stupid. All right, I'm taking my hair down. Sorry. I hope you're having a great Sunday. We are going to be talking about mobile homes because, that's kind of my field of expert. So we have a couple of things we want to talk about. Mobile homes have gotten, and I'm just going to clarify, what the public thinks of mobile homes is really labeled as manufactured housing. So we're going to be talking about manufactured housing. So you're going to be hearing me use the words mobile home and manufactured home. I'm literally talking about the same thing. That is not the same thing as modular. So we're going to be talking about that a bit. And we're going to also be talking about the lines being blurred between modular and manufactured, and see if you would want to help me on a little mission, because there's storm brewing within the modular manufactured industry. And I want to take you along with that, along that ride with me, because it's really interesting how words mean something and the industry knows they mean something. So they're trying to make it, you'll see, you're going to see what they're doing. And you can tell me if you think this is a big deal or not, because I think it is. And I don't know. I hate when they try to deceive the public, and it's my job, I feel, to tell you how they're trying to deceive us in the long run. So with that, I want to say hello to everybody here in the chat. Hello, Eric the Blue. Happy Sunday to you. Happy Sunday, LD Garage. Oh, you hate apartments. Oh, you're looking at mobile homes. Good for you. Good for you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hi, Lawnmower. Good to see you as well. Charlton Zimmerman is there. Hello, Charlton. My mobile homes, not trailers. Oh, good question. Actually, let's get into that really quick. So anything built before 1976 was considered a trailer, meaning that you could trail it behind your car. It was meant to be actual mobile home, and they had no regulation or building standards they were built to. So anything built before 1976 is considered a trailer or even a mobile home. After 1976, they came up with some regulations that a mobile home had to meet. And then the name manufactured housing came down the line a little bit later because of the fact of the improvements of the quality of the build, as far as wind standards, strapping systems, the quality of the roofing systems, everything got a lot better. So they said, we're getting rid of the word mobile because it's not mobile. That's a misnomer. Every time they say a mobile home, there's nothing mobile about them other than the fact that they are taken from a factory on a mobile device, basically, and brought to the location. But once you move it, you're not supposed to move it again, especially if it has a mortgage on it. You can't move that more than 2 times and get a mortgage on it again. So if you ever get yourself a manufactured house and you decide to move it, once you've moved it, most likely it's going to be very difficult to finance. After that, you would only be able to get conventional financing. So, if you were looking at FHA or VA buyers, you wouldn't be able to use that if it had been moved one time. So Rodrigo Menendez says mobile homes are not worth it mobile homes are worth it if you own the land. You are correct. Now, I'm not saying that you can't make money living in a park. There's plenty of parks across the United States that if you bought a manufactured home inside that park, you could possibly make money from that manufactured house. But in some cases, you would not make as much money. In most cases, you're not going to make as much money as if you were to sell it with a piece of land. That doesn't make the manufactured home worthless. And it isn't just because of the value of the land. It's more sellable because you own everything encompassing, and it's considered real property once you do that, when it's all enclosed in one. So SB, hi from Michigan. We can't complain about the cold today. Oh, well, it is I think we're the same temperature. I think it's 96 here. Hey, D-Jack, it's nice to see you. Question, is a mobile home park or trailer park? It depends. It depends on the age of the homes that are inside it. And some parks will allow for tiny homes, PMRVs, and manufactured housing. So that would be considered a trailer park. If it's just full of manufactured homes, then it could be called a mobile home park. But a trailer park means that you can park many different types of housing inside that facility itself. And where you're renting the land as well. Yep. Good question though. That's a very good question. And it also depends, like how long ago was that established? Some people, if you have something that was, put together in the 60s, they're going to call it a trailer park. If it was something that was more recent, it's going to be called a mobile home park. MH08 said, I bought in a mobile home device trying to up the traffic along the way. Right, Smalls, makes no sense. Oh no, what makes no sense? D-Jack, hot summer, hot town in the city. I remember that song. Was it looking wild and looking pretty? Something like that? I don't know. You're digging up an old memory. All right. Nowadays, it seems that they arrive in pieces. That will depend on the size you get your manufactured mobile home. So if you decide to get on a single wide, that could show up in one piece. Most likely it will. If you get a double wide, that's two pieces that are put together that makes it double the width, right? And then you can get something called a triple wide. And I've even seen recently on the old YouTubes, when I look at mobile home tour channels, they even have a 2-story mobile home now. And this is where the blurred lines come in, because what happens is that people think that it's a traditional stick-built house that is built to traditional stick-built standards, but it's still built to HUD standards that are not as high as your local building code. You're not looking at international building code. And that's what modular homes are built to. And those also are built in the factory. And they also come in pieces, but they're not HUD standards. So let me read you this. This is an email I just got yesterday. And this is what's going on right now. There's an ongoing concerted effort by the manufactured housing industry to continue to blur the lines between HUD and international code modular homes. And it further confuses the public in an effort to gain market share for modular home industry. I'll stop right there. I don't know if you guys have watched any of my videos, but since I have you here and you're watching, I think you should know this. There is a product out there that is made by some of the biggest names in manufactured housing, and they're calling it either a modular hybrid, or they're calling it a manufactured crossover. They have all these different names. So it kind of looks like a house, but it's built to HUD specifications, meaning a lower standard for your specific area that they can sell you, where you think you're buying a traditional modular home, but it's built to HUD standards. And what people will say, especially when they're going to sell it, I don't have a mobile home. This is not a mobile home. This is not a manufactured house. It's a modular home. That's what I paid for. I paid extra to have a modular home. And in reality, that's not what they're getting. They're getting a HUD manufactured house, and they had no idea. They just signed some paperwork, and they were very confused by the salespeople, because that's their job, to sell you something that they thought they were getting something modular, built to modular specifications. And then they don't find out until afterwards. There's more of an effort today to keep blurring those lines and allowing for these companies to sell houses, telling them, the public, that it's a modular when it's truly a manufactured house. So let me go on with this letter. There's also traction for the manufactured housing industry. There are allies, some members of Congress, and affordable housing advocates to move towards this direction. And the sender says, I cannot tell you how many times in person and online people have said, what needs to happen is a national code for modular, which I've often said. But this letter goes on to say, that won't happen. But a highly likely outcome from moves like this is that we will have a national standard for almost modular homes built in built to HUD specifications at the expense of the international uh, residential code modular home industry. So the more that they're going to push towards this, people are going to be confused even further if it's a modular home or if it's a manufactured house. This is a big concern for the industry. Well, this is very short notice. If you are compelled to consider submitting your own letter, email the MHCC via the contact below to close by the close of business day on Monday. That's tomorrow. Hit on the public confusion and structural integrity. Here's the summary of areas of differences and concern. The key differences: HUD is often less stringent than international residential code, especially with wind resistance, energy efficiency, and structural requirements. Modular homes are built to IRC code, International Residential Code, ensuring they meet local building standards, while manufactured homes are built to HUD code, focusing on federal standards. And we all know how the federal government's standards can be sometimes. We will continue to monitor the situation, continue to advocate for clear distinctions between HUD and IRC. So whenever you're looking at these houses, you're going to ask them, is this built to IRC or is it built to HUD specifications? That's how you're going to know if it's a mobile manufactured house or if it's a modular house. If they say it's built to IRC, that is modular. If they say it's built to HUD, that is mobile manufactured. And if they say, well, components of this will be modular, ask them at the end, the very end, when it's all put together, what is the building code that this is built to? What is it being financed to? I want to know, because they are not very clear on this, and they make the public confused on what they're purchasing. A lot of people want a modular home. That's what they think they're buying. But when they blur the lines with these hybrid products, when they go to sell it, or they go to insure it, or when they go to get, when they go to the tax assessor's office, they see manufactured HUD home, and they had no idea. So I will put the address in as a linked comment after this is published. So if you do want to write to this board to let them know that as a part of the public, this was very confusing to you, and you don't think that they should blur the lines by taking these homes off the chassis and making modular less appealing by confusing the public. You can write your own way, the way you want to write it, but I would love for you to emphasize there needs to be a set standard for modular, and there needs to be a set standard for HUD so the public isn't confused. So with that, let's go a little further. Lawnmower said, Kristina, the summer in the city from Loving Spoon, not Hot Child of the City, from Nikki Glider. Oh, well, I wouldn't have known. This is not a music channel. It was 90 in Munich today. I think there's something like 67 million degrees Celsius. Pretty sure I did the math right. Yeah. Well, there's like a heat dome over us or something like that. So, Eddie, can we get into the article that's showing that modular manufactured construction is getting more popular? MH08 says it's 90 degrees in Denver. Heat index of 86. You guys are getting Louisiana weather. I'm melting. And my poor daughter, she works outside and she's been melting. Yeah. Yep. Eddie's going to go ahead and pull that article up in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. We didn't get any phone calls this week. So if you're interested in leaving a phone call, I had one message on there. I'm going to tell you about this message I got. So the message I got was from another AI. So the AI Kristina was talking to another AI, and they were duking it out, battling it out. And Eddie's like, oh, you should have played that for the stream. I was like, oh, I erased it. I shouldn't have erased it. You guys would have laughed, but it was funny because they're like, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. And they just kept going back and forth so that the AIs were battling it out with each other. It was funny. All right. Mobile home industry booms amid housing affordability crisis. And we knew that was going to happen, especially here on this channel. We talk about this quite a bit. Mobile homes sales surged 60% in a decade as housing market prices climb even higher. New manufactured homes cost between 124 versus 400,000 for traditional stick-built homes. Elkhart manufacturer grows from 13 to 60 employees with a 4-month backlog. So this was put out May 1st, 2025. We've never talked about this on the live stream, so I thought it was a perfect time. Elkhart was once a heavily stigmatized industry, is now booming. Manufactured homes offer affordable housing options in the housing market that continues to price out first-time home buyers. And I want to ask you guys this. Do you think the stigma of living in a mobile home is less today than it was, let's just say 10 years ago? Or do you think that that stigma has still stuck around? Do you think there's still a thing out there that says, oh, you live in a trailer? Like, I don't know. From what I'm seeing, I think it's changed a lot, but I want to get your opinion. At the Elevation Park Model Company, Elkhart business is thriving. The manufacturer, founded just 3 years ago by 2 friends, has grown from 13 employees to 60 and currently faces a 4-month back order. They can pick straight from the catalog, and that's what I'm looking for. Or they can come to us and say, I'd like a bedroom, but this kitchen, let's morph it together, blah, 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 blah. All right, who cares what he has to say? Let's scroll down. The appeal is clear. What are you doing? The appeal is clear. When comparing costs, new mobile homes average around $124,000, while new single-family homes typically cost $400,000. Manufactured housing is the country's largest source of unsubsidized low-income housing, providing shelter for more than 21 million Americans from 2014 to 2024. Shipments of new homes increased more than 60%, according to the census data. The homes are built with quality materials compared to traditional housing, despite falling under the RV classification. Size regulations vary by country, with Canadian units permitted to be larger than U.S. counterparts, which remain under 400 square feet. So gets in super chat. Thank you. Yeah. Kyle says, hey, Kristina, I've been following you for 2 years. Wouldn't a single wide mobile home be ideal? The seam on the double wide seems to freak me out. It really depends on what you want. Now, single wide, double wide, triple wide, it all comes down to the people that are actually putting your home together. So it doesn't matter if you have a terrible team that puts your house together, then you're going to have a problem with it. And you're saying, oh, triple wides are the worst. They leak all over the place. And it had nothing to do with the home. It has to do with the people that put it together. That's where the biggest problem comes in. It's usually not the house that was built in the factory that's the issue. It's the people that put it together once it gets to the location. So that's what I'll tell you there. So you remember how we were talking earlier, and I was mentioning HUD code and then IRC code, which is what modular homes are built to? Now we're going to throw one more into the mix, and that is RV code. So RV code is different than HUD. They have different wind speeds. They have different requirements. And so that's another way they're building these houses. And people are confused because they're like, well, they think that's modular because they sold it to them as a modular, but then they have a house that is built to RV or PMRV code. So that's where the confusion comes in there. And that's usually where you see your tiny homes, those smaller houses. Those are usually in a PMRV or RV code. The homes are built to quality materials compared to traditional housing, despite falling under the RV classification. Size regulations vary by country, with Canadian units permitted to be larger than the U.S. counterparts, which remain under 400 square feet. Scroll down a bit, babe, please. And I say babe because that's my husband on the other side. Buyers are getting creative with their dwellings rather than placing them in a traditional trailer parks. Some homeowners are using them as mother-in-law suites in large backyards or home offices amid the growing work from home trend. Others convert them into short-term rental properties. In the first 2 months of the year alone, more than 17,000 manufactured homes were shipped across the country, representing 8% increase from the previous years. The company showcases various customizable features, including built-out decks, various paneling options, fireplaces, allowing home buyers to personalize their space at a fraction of the cost of traditional home construction. I don't know some of these. I don't know. Have you seen some of these tiny homes? I saw a tiny home that was it was 400 square feet. It was 400 square feet. Don't get me wrong, the finishes on the inside of this thing were absolutely beautiful, and it was really cute on the outside. But they wanted $200,000 for it. And I'm like, $200,000? What is it made out of? Titanium and platinum? I mean, like, people are getting ridiculous. And I know some people will pay that price. The market will dictate how much it costs in the end. They may be sitting on that little tiny home for a very long time, but I can't imagine spending for $200,000 on a 400 square foot PMRV. Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think? Would you consider a manufactured housing? Would you consider that? Eddie, do we have any answers to that question? So yes, what about tiny homes? Tiny homes, like I was saying earlier, those are built to RV or PMRV standards, but this is where the lines really get blurred. There is no specific building code. If you label something a tiny home, there is no building code for that. Builders can build those little houses to whatever they want to. And they don't get in trouble for it because there's no direct line saying this has to have this amount of wind speed. This has to be bolted down with hurricane straps. They don't have any code whatsoever. They could just, someone in their backyard could put something on a chassis and say it's a tiny home. And who knows if it's going to blow over with a high wind. It's crazy, right? It's like the wild, wild west, especially with tiny homes. I got to look up PMRV. All right, Eddie, if you could pull up the definition of PMRV, that'd be great. I consider it, but prefer modular. And I do too. If anybody has been watching me for a hot minute, if I was to ever build a house again, I would build it to modular. And the reason I say that is when you see a modular home or even any kind of manufactured home, all the building materials and all the workers are working in environment controlled facilities. So there's no rain or water intrusion ever getting onto any of those pieces of wood. Everything is brought to the factory, put together in the factory, and then when it's brought to the location, it's covered before it ever is put on the spot. So to me, like, mold is extremely dangerous. I live in a very humid environment. I see what they do, these traditional home builders do, where the subcontractors come out. They will leave building materials everywhere. They'll throw the building materials into the yard and they'll put the sod right on top of it. And any builder that says that doesn't happen is lying, because I've seen it a gazillion freaking times. It's in a controlled factory. Not only that, whenever they're building these houses, there's a third party. Most of these home builders have a third party inspection that's done to these houses throughout the process of it being built. So they have to have somebody go through and inspect these houses before they ever even reach the location where it's going to be permanently affixed. And they have to follow those rules ahead of time. So that isn't like that with traditional home construction. You don't have somebody come by and say, oh yeah. And if they do, a lot of times, I don't know if you live in a small town, but amazing what happens when you grease some palms in a small town, how things get through. Park model recreation, PMRV classification. Okay. A PMRV means a tiny home or similar dwelling structure with wheels and a chassis. The PMRV is with wheels that have been taken off or mounted on a foundation, will still be viewed as a temporary or recreational use and not a permanent dwelling. PMRVs are only permitted for temporary use in Washington state unless a mobile home park has a RCW, and I'm not going to read all those numbers. PMRVs must adhere to be applicable to snow load requirements for CLEUM, or approved by the city building official. So this is the other thing that people don't understand. PMRVs, or what you see a lot of times that are tiny homes, they are specifically made for temporary living use, like a cabin, like a something you would use, maybe a couple, 3-4 months out of the year. They're not meant for long-term living use. And I think that's their way of getting around some of the building codes, maybe because they're not meant to be lived in year round. I don't know, but most people that own them, that are like buying them for a tiny home, they're living in it year round. So, I mean, who's going to stop them? Who's going to knock on your door and said, hey, you've been living in this for 6 months. It's only meant to live in it for 5. So you're going to have to move out. Like, who's going to stop them? Who's going to stop them? MH08 says, I got barraged by container home videos for a while this week. Okay, good. I'm so glad you brought this up. So in an effort to find the most affordable housing options, people have looked to different viable solutions. And there was this growing trend of using shipping containers and turning those into houses. Saw tons of videos about it. People have done this many, many times. But the thought that it's affordable is out the window. To make a shipping container into a viable, livable home is very expensive. First of all, you have to meet some fire code, especially if it's going to be affixed to a foundation. They have no windows in, so you have to create the windows. And then not only that, you have to have the right kind of insulation in there. I visited a guy out in North Carolina who bought these like $6,000 shipping containers, but it took him about $125,000 to retrofit everything so it would be a viable living situation. They're not affordable, and to think you can get that done cheaply is wishful thinking. Now they're really heavy, that's the great part, and a lot of people will buy previously owned shipping containers, but I want people to be very careful on that too, because when you're buying those, you don't know what they've been painted with. They could be off-gassing some serious chemicals. When you're stripping off that paint, is it some kind of lead paint? You don't know what that shipping container was shipping all these years, what was inside of it. You're going to have to do a full detox of that thing. Just to let you know, that is not a affordable option. It's super creative. It's really cool, but it's not affordable. MH08 said, I prefer it, but I prefer modular. Yeah, I considered it, but I prefer modular. Yeah, I like them. I think they're cool what people do with them. But everybody I know that's ever converted a container into a home, they spent some serious cash flow. So I talked to this guy. He was up in, I believe, Connecticut. I could be wrong. Maybe it was Maine. And he started doing this, and he spent a boatload of money, but his is like high dollar, high end shipping container house. It's like, I mean, it's going to be like $1.5 million property when they're done. RD said, the way things are going, I'll be looking for a tough shed. You know what? Eddie, show him the woman who turned the shed into a little house. Pull up that video that I did years ago. There's a lady in my area who moved from Austin, Texas. And let me just tell you, she's no spring chicken. She's just only a little bit older than me. She took a shed and turned it into a house. She did it on her own. She bought this whole shed. I think she bought the shed for, I don't remember. Maybe it was like $10,000. She found it on Facebook Marketplace. And then stripped the whole thing out. I think it was being used as a hair salon beforehand. and she stripped the whole thing out and then retroactive it to make it a house. So this is her retirement home. Do you know what video I'm talking about, Eddie? I don't know if Eddie is listening to me. You can talk, Eddie, so people know what I'm talking about. But yeah,
yes, give me 1 second. I'm looking.
Yeah. Just go under the most popular, and it should be like the 4th or 5th video down, and it just shows the shed house. But her name, she's a lovely lady. She just lives right up the road from me. The thing about it is that your local area has been cracking down across the United States on these type of homes, right? Because they're not really happy about people churning $6,000 sheds into housing, because they don't make as much tax dollars on that. So when you take a piece of property and put these little shed houses on it, they would have made a lot more money in taxes if they put a bigger house on it. So they're putting building restrictions on it. So this is what she bought originally. This was the shed that she bought, and then she turned it into a whole house. So yeah, Eddie's playing this. This is it now. She needs to have it repainted. She was a little worried about termites. It is off the ground. She is in a flood zone. But this is her. She did it all by herself. So this is her little house now. Isn't it cute? You can do that. You can totally do that and turn that into a tiny home. Now, just know that it is built to absolutely no specific building code. She was able to get it approved as long as she met certain things as far as the light, getting electricity out there, and water out there. But it already had a well system in the on the property itself. She was fortunate. Her son had a piece of property that she could put it on, but she turned it into a home. You can do it. You can see how old that video is. I had so much Botox in my face, I could barely move it. Kristina was doing a lot of Botox then. I obviously don't do that now. So, if you guys want to leave any questions for next week's live stream, you can always call this number, 888-255-0197. You will get a AI version of Kristina's voice that you can leave a message with. And then next week, we'll play your question on the air and I will answer it live. Florida even says, I'm considering an Amish-built 400 square foot built shed. Tiny homes have become even so commercially saturated. What happened to affordable? Well, I don't know if you know this, but they actually have tiny homes, not sheds, but tiny homes that are built by the Amish as well. I've seen them all over TikTok. This one guy, then they have the Amish tiny home cabins as well. They do them, and they have full electricity and everything. And if anybody's considering doing this, whether you're building manufactured modular, tiny home, anything, and you have a piece of property, please check with your area first, because you're going to want to this is one of those times you don't want to do it first and then ask permission later or forgiveness later, because they will make you take it down. So get the approval first before you put any of these houses on any piece of property. You're going to be better off as far as, this is the only time I'll ever tell you this. If you're in a hurry and you're having a hard time getting approval from your local area, county or whatever, this is one of those times you can go ahead and say, all right, well, temporarily I'll live in a park for like a year until I get this straightened out so I can put my home on another location. That is something you can consider. That's one of the few times you'll ever hear me say that. MH08 says, I have a 2-story garage. It would be a perfect ADU. City supports ADUs. What should I consider before I consider looking into this further? All right. So a couple of things you should be considering. If anybody doesn't know what an ADU is, accessory dwelling unit is what everybody uses ADU differently, but I always say it's an accessory dwelling unit. And it's just where someone takes a garage or a structure on their property and converts it into an apartment that someone could live in and live in independently from the rest of the home. First, you want to consider your permits and how much that's going to cost you. You want to consider if you're going to need to get a separate line for your electricity. And you're going to want to consider if you're going to need a separate line for your water, because if you're going to rent that specific structure out, that ADU out, you're going to have to separate those two things. So that way they're paying their own individual utilities and you're not having to pay for it. You also want to consider how much is your property taxes going to increase. And you're going to want to check with your homeowner's insurance to see if how much that's going to increase, or if they'll even drop you because you decided to do something like this. Just be very aware and careful. My husband and I have a piece of property that has 2 homes on it. So one would be one of the properties would be considered an ADU today. It wasn't built before ADUs. It was built way before that. But if you were to look at it, it would be considered an ADU because the 2 pieces of property actually do touch each other. The roof lines are connected. And to get that thing financed, because those 2 pieces of property are connected, was the biggest pain in the rear end. We have a very strange loan because of the way that it's connected. And we have separate electricity. So they each have their own electricity box, but we couldn't separate the water intake. So everybody, they all pay the same for water. I think we pay the water because of that. Isn't that true, Eddie? Don't we pay the water?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we pay the water because we couldn't figure out how to separate it and make it fair. So we were like, whatever, we'll pay the water. Yep. Why would you need insurance for a shed? Well, you got to remember, for some people, this is all they have. And if something was to happen, like a hurricane or tornado or something like that, paying a small amount every single month, if everything was lost, that they could just pay a little down payment and get everything back, that would be better than nothing. The woman that I showed you earlier, she tried to have insurance on it. She did for quite some time, and then it got too expensive. I don't know if she was able to get insurance again, but she was with Progressive for a short period of time. And then she was with Lloyd's of London after that. That's all she has in the world is that little house and everything that's in it. So to pay a small amount every single month just for peace of mind was worth it to her. I mean, that's all she has. So Charlton says, I did live in a trailer once. It was cold in the Northeast winters. But back in my day, the very first home I ever rented when I became a big girl, I'm a big girl. I can rent, I can do it on my own. So I rented a house with somebody and I thought it was a house, never knew it was a mobile home, never had a clue. The way they had it, like they had it up against the mountain and they had done all the edging along the outside with the porches, and the way they made it look, it just looked like a ranch style home to me. It wasn't until, I don't know, maybe I think right when I was supposed to renew the lease, I noticed the seam down the center. And then I said to my roommate, I'm like, is this a mobile home? They were like, yeah. I was like, oh, I had no idea. But we never really got cold. I don't think it was that bad. Again, if it was built before 1976, it didn't have any building codes. So today's manufactured mobile homes are a lot better. You guys, like, if you haven't seen them, go just drive into a lot one day when you're bored and go take a tour on the inside. Anything you can think of as far as like finishes on a home can be done in a mobile manufactured house. They're not the same as they used to be. They don't look the same. The seams aren't the same. The walls aren't the same. Even the roof pitches are different than they used to be. I understand that like some of the older models, they're built like trash, but they're built much, much, much better than they ever have been. Lady Wolf says the issue near me is that it's almost impossible to find land anywhere nearby where manufactured housing is allowed. I can understand that. In the area that I live, in order for you to be able to put a manufactured mobile home on a piece of land, it has to be a full acre. It didn't used to be that way, but now it is. And they're getting stricter and stricter about it in many, many areas. And the more money that comes into a town, the stricter they end up being. I don't know why they have a problem with it. It's more common in rural areas to be able to allow for that. But, if you want to move closer to the city, it's really difficult to get manufactured housing approval. Yep. Onyx is right. Nowadays, it fascinates me, but it's not realistic in the name of money. Yeah. I'm sure that you're talking about the container homes. Yeah. And like these tiny homes, do you remember when, like, not even 5 years ago, tiny homes used to be like $20,000. I showed one on my channel that was it was a PMRV. It was beautiful, and it was 35,000, and it had all the bells and whistles on it. I mean, here in Louisiana, it wasn't popular, but when I did the video on that house, man, oh man, those people got so many phone calls for that PMRV. They wanted it because there wasn't many people that were selling them at that time for $35,000. Now today, that same PMRV would probably be like $70,000. But the cost of building materials have gone up a lot. The cost of labor has gone up triple fold since then. So they got to make the money up somewhere. JZ5150 says, hi, cool, you're live today. Yes, I am. I emailed you earlier at info on your website about Clayton on-frame and off-frame options. Oh, I'll take a look. I'll be honest, I have declined my, I'm the worst at answering emails. I'm either have a day that I'm like super good or I'm really bad. You know what? Call in your question. Call that number 888-255-0197 and I'll answer it live here. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I do not usually speak on specific builders because in order for me to be honest, that puts me in a light of being, it opens it up for interpretation where I could be sued. And so a lot of times when I'm sharing the stories of people in their homes and the companies, I'm sharing their story and I'm not saying my personal opinion about what is being said because I'm not going to open myself up for litigation. I'm not that wealthy enough to be able to fight the big dogs when it comes to affordable housing. I'm sure you understand. Eddie's asleep? Nah, Eddie's not asleep. He better not be asleep. Eric DeBlue says tough sheds have more potential to make it livable for far less than container homes. You're probably right. I went to Home Depot, and I'm pretty sure like Home Depot is very aware what people are doing with these houses because I've even seen them now where they'll put their own decor inside them, even though they're like just the bare bones where you could just see the wood and everything, but they'll put like a bed in there, a bed frame in there, or they'll put some like lawn chairs in there just so you can see how big it actually is. They know that people are turning these into houses or she sheds or mother-in-law suites. Debbie Brady says, smash the like button. Thank you, Debbie. My daughter works at Seven Brew. She brought me, this is a rare moment. I'm not drinking tea, guys, out of a huge cup, drinking a coffee drink. Rare moment. Shelly says, we have lowered our standards in this country and are accepting crumbs because of taxation. No one should have to live in a shed in this country. Ugh. I empathize with what you're saying, but I think the problem is this. Because of the fact of housing getting so incredibly expensive, we've made it to the point where my kids' age, they're in their 20s now. They have in their brain, I'll never be able to afford a house. I'll have to rent for the rest of my life. But if you take this idea that you think is like, crumbs, and it's a silly idea to live in a shed, they take this shed home, they put it on a piece of property they own and they own outright, and they live in that for a few years so they can save enough money for a house. It's just a stepping stone into real estate. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to live in it forever, but it's a hell of a lot better than giving money to a landlord and never earning any kind of equity. If you own a piece of land that you've developed over a piece of time, a piece of years, 10 years, that land has value. And even if the shed that you turned into a house has absolutely no value, the land itself will. And so you've built some equity into that. Not only that, you've also saved money because you're not paying rent. Now, in the future, you can move on to your next house. It's just a stepping stone into real estate. This is not what we wanted for our kids, but this is what they need to do so they don't become a renter for life. If you're going to be a renter for life, you're going to be stuck into the working machine forever and ever and ever. And we just have to kind of change our mindset when it comes to real estate. It's not what we wanted, but this is what we have to do today. Alt Universe says, I visited a builder here in Indiana that sells 16 by 40 two-story building for $46,000. They advertise it as a built-in code. So I guess it's modular. IN code. Oh, like international code, you mean? Indiana code. Well, God, you don't scream at Eddie. Eddie yelled at me. Eddie, everybody tell Eddie to quit yelling. That wasn't necessary. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to take a look at it. And then I would have to see how they're financing it. All right. Eric the Blue says Tough Shed homes come ready for wiring, easy wiring and plumbing, and they only can apply external structural insulated panels, SIPs, for effective insulation. Yeah. Well, good. I wasn't aware. I don't know how Tough Shed works. So yeah. Proud Level 24 says AI Kristina is very salty. So if you guys call this number right here, it is a version of my voice. I used it for AI to create this voice message system to answer for me. I can't afford to have somebody answer the phone for me all the time to leave these kinds of messages. So she's kind of rude. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes she'll cut you off in the middle of you asking a question. God forbid you pause, because then she'll start railroading you again. So if you want to fight with the AI Kristina robot, call this number and leave your comment for the next week's live stream. Go ahead. Going Against the Grain says, why does the state of Tennessee have issues with Amish houses? There's a gray area that you cannot live in it unless it's built on site. I don't know if it's just Amish houses. I bet you it has to do with anything that's built outside the factory. I bet you that's what it is. And it's probably because they don't have a specific eye on it, on the actual building code and structure that it's built to. I don't know why Tennessee would have a problem with it. I've seen that in other places too, that they, was it in North Carolina and Asheville, that there was a bunch of Amish cabins that were dropped off to people that had lost everything. And then the county came through and said, oh, no, everybody pull these up. You can't live in these. But those houses were terrible, but the FEMA trailers are fine. Like, what? Who makes these rules up? I swear there's always some busybody that sits on a board that's like, no, we didn't get to have that approved. They can have a FEMA trailer, but they can't have this solid wood, completely awesome Amish house because we didn't keep my eye on it. There's always there's some nosy little know-it-all that likes to throw people under the bus because, we got to do everything by the book. God forbid these people have lost everything and they have something to live in other than a tent. Ugh. Sometimes when you really, you know what I'm saying, it makes you mad. Shelly said, it never pans out. Most mobile homes lose value and they're expensive to move. Don't let them convince you that this is the way to go. I'll push back on that a little bit because not all mobile homes lose value. That is an incorrect evaluation. Now, it depends on, just like anything in real estate, your location makes a huge difference, and how much you take care of it and the maintenance of that house. If you put it in a bad location and you don't take care of it, you're not going to make any money on it. But that would be true of a house. Now, I'm not saying that you wouldn't make more money if you put a traditional stick-built house on that piece of property. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that you can make money from a mobile manufactured house on your own piece of land. The likelihood of you making that kind of money in a RV park or in any kind of mobile home park is a lot less, but it doesn't make the home not valuable. You have a whole different problem when you have your house in a park. At any time, a institutional investor can come in and they can jack up the rates as high as they want to. The rents can go up as high as they want to, as many times as they want to within a year, because there's no regulations when it comes to mobile home parks. But if you have your own piece of land and you decided to put a single wide mobile home manufactured house on that piece of property, live there for 10 years, save a hell of a lot more money than you would paying rent to some landlord, and then decided to sell it in the future, that does not make it worthless. You saved a lot of money. That I'll leave it at that. Debbie Brady said, make sure you also subscribe and ring the bell notification for new content and live streams. You know what? I'm also going to be putting shorts out there soon. I don't know if you guys are into YouTube shorts, but I'm going to start doing little 1-minute videos that you can see vertically, where you do this, scroll. V-Man has a question. How about insurance on a shed converted to a home? Can you get insurance through your agent that your existing home is on the same lot? Okay, so that's going to depend. So, I don't know if you guys realize, but this house that I'm sitting in right now, this little tiny structure, is it's outside my home. It's not. It's a little house outside my house. And yes, it is part of my homeowner's insurance. Yes, my policy did increase because I ended up putting this little house behind my house. And I insured the contents inside it. But not all insurance companies are going to allow for you to do that. That's why it's important to check ahead of time. You may have to put on a separate policy just for the tiny home itself. And like I said earlier, there's very few companies that insure tiny homes, but Lloyd's of London is one of them. ADUs are a lot easier to insure as long as they're labeled an ADU. And usually that's because they're built to the exact same building code as the area requires. So it would be the whatever the county's building code is. It just happens to be on a smaller scale, and you're able to get regular homeowners insurance on it. I hope that answered your question. If it did not, ask again. I'll add some clarity to that without stuttering. Trying not to anyway. It is so hot. Oh, look. Oh, there. Yeah. See, you see that little building behind me right there? That's where I'm actually filming this. This is the little house that you see. I wish I could take the camera and show you, but it kind of looks like that now. But yep, this is it. It's in my backyard. And when did we do that, Eddie? How many years ago with that? It's been about 4 years I've had this in the backyard. Yeah, 3 years ago. 3 years ago. I got so much heat on that. If you want to read some comments on people being really, really, really angry with me, read the comments of that video. They were so mad that I cooked crawfish. The whole the whole video was about how quickly this house was put together. We were talking about SIPs, the structural insulated panels, SIPs construction. That's what this house is. And we were comparing how quickly you could get this house put together. Could you boil a pot of crawfish? Could that get done faster than putting the house together? That was the whole kind of thing. It was meant for fun. And for some reason, boiling crawfish really upset people. And I mean, it's such a cultural thing here. I didn't think it was that divisive, but apparently it is. And then people were like, you should kill them before you boil them. And I'm like, if you kill them before you boil them, that's a sure way to get food poisoning. Just saying. Just saying. You can't do that. Anyway. MD Izzy Lizzie says, Kristina, question. Is it difficult to get a home loan for manufactured homes at this time? Are banks approving home loans for these dwellings in this bad economy? Yes. Getting financing for manufactured housing, especially if you're buying a brand new one or one that is less than 10 years old, you shouldn't have an issue. Now, the issue that you will have is not all lenders do manufactured house lending. There's a few companies that always do it. You won't have an issue with it. You'll get a better interest rate a lot of times if you go with your local credit unions, but nobody has a real problem financing them. You can use your VA VA loan benefits for a manufactured house, as long as it meets the credentials that they require. You can get a RD, or rural development, sometimes farm loan is what people call it. You can get one of those. You can use FHA. You can use that for a manufactured mobile home. All of this means only if it's attached to land. There's different loan products if you're thinking about moving it to a park. If you're moving it to a park where you do not own the land, that's called a chattel loan. And that's a separate loan from the traditional 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Also, those loan terms are going to be different. Your interest rate is going to be higher, and it's over a shorter period of time. It's usually like 22 years instead of 30. I think that's the max. But, talk to your lender about that beforehand. And you can also get conventional too. But no, there isn't, because what's happening in the economy doesn't stop home lending. I mean, if we were still writing home loans after 2008, the economy now isn't going to stop for writing more loans. Florida says, my daughter is 27 and I'm preaching this. Start small and live below your means on family land. Yeah, one of my daughters she moved out of the house for college. Then she moved back in after college, and now she's moving out again. I'm like, stay home. I mean, we feed you every night. Stay home. And she has to spread her wings. So she's going to go rent an apartment with a friend of hers for the next year. And I think this time I don't think she's coming back. I want them to stay. I want my kids to stay as long as they want. I enjoy my kids. I want them to stay with me. Greg Scanlon says, yell away, Eddie. Eddie's mic is on. Oh, see, Debbie said, quit hollering, Eddie. Yeah, they don't want you yelling. Yeah. And what's really going to be sad too is that my daughter, not only is she's leaving, she's also taken 3 of her cats. So it's like, it's not just my kid. It's 4 whole family members that are leaving. These little creatures are a part of our lives, and they're going to be gone. It's going to be so sad because I miss all my little animals, and my babies are going to be gone. Sandy says, I think they're holding up in value if you keep them up more so than ever. You are correct. Now, if you had told me 15 years ago, I would have said what that commenter had said before, that you wouldn't make any money, or you would make very little money on a mobile manufactured house. Today, that is not the case. People are really starving for an affordable housing option. And from my experience and from what I'm seeing, younger generations don't give a flying flip if it's a PMRV, if it's a mobile home, a single wide, double wide. They just want something that is a lot less expensive than rent. And the promise of rent coming down in a lot of areas across the United States is not happening. And when you live in a world that you can look up statistics today, that 42% of your income is going towards housing, this is a more viable option in a lot of younger people's minds, because they don't want to spend 42% of their income just to have a roof over their head. That's ridiculous. So if you could have a place of your own where you can dig your own garden and have your dog, and you don't have to pay a landlord or ask permission to paint a room, and it's yours. They don't give a crap what kind of building it is. If it's a shed that they turned into a house, it's theirs. It belongs to them. So I think that we're going to start seeing that more and more, that you're going to see a lot more of these kids just saying, you know what? I'm not going to get the 3 bedroom, 2 bath house with the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids just yet. I'm going to wait. I'm going to save some money, and I'm going to do it this way first. I think it's smart. Lawnmower says Amish houses weren't allowed in Tennessee because of the code requirements, along with a host of other regulatory and statutory requirements, local and state. Same thing in Texas. I wonder what it is, what their code, what was wrong with their building that made it not up to code. Because I mean, I've seen how they do the roofing and stuff, and it looks a lot better than some of these huge name brand stick built builders that are all over the country. You know, those, I'd much rather live in an Amish cabin than one of those little houses. Who's on first says, question, is there a home building lobby or industry group similar to the car sales dealer lobby that influences state laws that make it harder to get homes built? Yes, there is a lobby for pretty much anything. There's the manufactured home industry, and then there's MHBA, Manufactured Home Builders Association. Yep, there is. And then there's the Modular Home Builders Association as well. Proud Liberal 24 says, do you say crawdads, crayfish, or crawfish? Well, I've only known it my whole life as crawfish. I didn't know about those other terms until I moved to Louisiana, and other people on my Facebook page were like, I love craydads. And I'm like, what are craydads or crawdads or crayfish? I've never heard any. I've always known it as crawfish. So it's crawfish to me. Proud Liberal 24 says, so what is the situation with ADUs? Do you still have to have both primary home and the ADU? Can you sell the ADU separately? Can you insure the ADU separately? So this is going to depend on your state. So I don't know if you've seen, there's been movement in California to turn these ADUs into individual properties. Some areas will allow you to partition your ADU off and sell it as its own independent piece of real estate. But of course, that has to have its own well or own water utilities going to that structure in order to have that happen. They also have their own billing address as well. Now, if that's the case, then you would have two separate insurance policies. Now, if you're building an ADU in your backyard as a mother-in-law suite, is all encompassing, and you would insure that on one policy, but it would have a rider for the ADU. So every state's going to be different, though. Always check with your insurance provider before you start doing anything like this. California has pretty much led the path on it, but it's going to be different in Maine than it is in Louisiana, than it is in Texas. So always check with your permitting office and with your insurance provider. Charlton Zimmerman says, why does Kristina in the picture have purple hair? Well, Kristina, like, I don't know if you know, but Kristina has bleached hair at the bottom, and whatever the color rinse she decides to use that month ends up being the color at the end. At one time I was gray, then it was purple, then it was pink. I've been every color under the sun. I think I might do pink next because, you know, why not? Why not? Apple says, who knew the crawfish fandom ran that deep? I know. I love your profile picture with the little bunny. I used to have a friend who had that all over her bedroom, and I was super jealous. I think the brand was Mary Mecco. Is that correct? I don't know. Quentin Martinez says, I don't think mobile homes are going to go up in value. Our money's just inflated to look like the value has gone up. I get what you're saying, but the thing is that we have a shortage of affordable housing here in the United States. And and builders cannot build homes at the price point that people need to afford them. Most people in the United States are making less than $80,000 a year. And most of the homes here in the United States that are being built are around $350,000 to $400,000. So if you're making $80,000, the likelihood of you being able to afford today's home prices with today's interest rates is next to none, zero. So the availability and the price point of manufactured housing is a lot more appealing to people that have incomes lower than $80,000. When you have it become more appealing, that means a rise in interest. So that makes it incredibly more valuable. That would have not been the case before the pandemic. Interest rates were low and fair. You still had housing that was still reasonable in a lot of areas. That is not the case today. So when you have a shortage of supply and more interest, what happens? The price increases. And so this is a viable option. It's an affordable option, and more people are going to be turning to it. So that means the likelihood of it going down in value is a lot less than it would have been, let's just say 10 years ago. Cryptid Content Media says, do preliminary research with home dealership in Merced, California. Very early stages. These houses are built to an insurer's delight, it seems. Everything they're looking for in fire safety and standardized. Are these mobile manufactured homes, or are these modular homes? I'd love to see that, because modular homes have a really good fire rating. I mean, they have to actually meet a much higher fire rating than a traditional stick-built house. That's why I like modular homes better. But Island Knight says Fayetteville, Arkansas has declared a housing shortage crisis, and there's a lots of open land here. Yeah. I mean, here where I live now would have been considered an affordable place to live. But we had a few things happen. We did a new home building freeze here in Ascension Parish because of the fact that there were so many home builders coming at one time. And when every time it rained, wherever there was a brand new subdivision, older subdivisions started to flood. So they didn't mitigate correctly before they built these houses or housing developments. So the area decided, you know what, we're going to freeze this until we get this straightened out and we can mitigate before the next flood comes through. I don't know when they're going to lift that, but that caused a big problem. Caused a big problem here, making it a lot more expensive, because when you freeze new home construction, that makes the other houses that are older become more valuable, because this is a desirable place to live. And we saw home prices increase a lot more than we had in many years prior. So who knows what's going to happen after they open it back up to home builders. Edson says, hey, I'm watching you live. Thanks for your expertise in cheering. Cheers. Hello, cheers. Yep. Oh, Debbie Brady has the poll results. Would you buy a manufactured mobile home? 68% of you said yes. 14% of you said no. And 18% said maybe. Wow, I have such a good group of people. All right, I want to tell you guys, don't forget, I'm going to pin the email address for the manufactured home industry to stop blurring the lines between modular construction and manufactured construction. That, you know, they need to make it clear this is a HUD manufactured home and this is a modular home, and they should have building standards for modular homes, so that way the public isn't confused. I'm going to put that email as a pinned comment after this is published on my channel. Second thing is, I want you guys to say a very special thank you to our moderators that always keep our chat super happy and wonderful. And the next thing I want to remind you guys is, if you want a question and you want your question answered for next week, please call the AI Kristina. Leave a message with her, 888-255-0197, and I will answer any of your questions that relates to real estate on the show next week. And one more thing, if you would like to share this as a podcast with any of your friends and family, you can go to anywhere you listen to podcasts, look for Kristina Smallhorn, Real Estate for Everyone. This week's show will be up tomorrow in the morning. Eddie always puts it up on Monday morning, and you can share it with your friends and family. If you have the time, please make sure you leave a 5-star review. Eddie asks that you do that because it makes him feel like he's accomplished something when you do that. And if you need to get a hold of me, you can always visit my website at KristinaSmallhorn.com. Click on one of the pink buttons, fill out the form, and I will get in contact with you at my earliest convenience. And I want to say thank you. This was a fun conversation. I have never spoken about mobile homes live. And I mean, I do thousands of videos about it. So the fact that I was able to have this discussion with you live and answer your questions live, it was great. Next week, let me know. Next week, do you want me to talk about modular homes? We will talk about that. I love talking about this kind of stuff. Maybe if you want to have a whole conversation about tiny homes, we can do that as well. Let me know. Let me know. When this is published, put it in the comment section below. I have no idea what this means, Eddie. I'm not a sports person. What does this mean? Eddie won't even get himself off mic. It has something to do with sports. I don't know. All right, everybody. Thank you.
LSU is 1 out away from the College World Series.
Oh, okay. College World
They
Series.
actually just won it.
Oh, they just won it. Fantastic. That was great. Thank you so much, Eddie. That had nothing to do with real estate. Love you, dudes. Love you guys. See you next Sunday. I hope you leave a message on the AI robot. Be good. Stay out of trouble. Don't talk to strangers. Look both ways before crossing. And remember, everybody deserves an affordable home.